Hi, I'm Neil Beck and I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. I had 500,000 consultations, home and hospital visits, and my conclusion was that there had never been any perfect mums or dads or families or communities, so we all started our life with some suffering and some mental health problems. And I also concluded that mental health was the most important thing in life. If you've got mental health, you're going to get everything else. So we should all start finding and fixing our mental health problems as soon as possible and growing our mental health as soon as possible. Don't wait till you crash. Problems cause problems that cause more problems, and it gets more and more complicated. And if you wait until you crash, it's very difficult to fix everything. And over a 22-year period, I've been developing 10 tools because everything we do, we can do better with good tools. Everything that we do with good tools. If there isn't a good tool, someone makes a good tool. But the two main tools for mental health, which are medicines and consultations, both have great weaknesses. So many medicines are addictive. Virtually all the medicines for anxiety, worry disorders and for sleep disorders are addictive. I did a search a couple of years ago of the most prescribed medicines in the US. Every year they publish a list of the 100 most prescribed medicines in the US, and the most prescribed medicine in the US for 3 years in a row had been Ambien, which in Australia is called Stilnox. And that wasn't because Ambien is very good, it's because Ambien Stilnox is very addictive. I once had a patient referred to me because he was taking 17 Stilnox tablets a day. And I once saw a family, 3 generations, mum, grandma and son, and between them they were taking about 30 Ambien Stilnox tablets a day. And they work wonderfully to begin with, but the way that addictive substances work is they give you great relief, which makes you want to take them to begin with. They cure nothing, so the problem's still there, and you develop a resistance to them. So every time you take them, they work a little bit less effectively, so you take a bit more, and so it goes more and more and more because of greater and greater resistance, until you end up that you're taking very large amounts which you can't afford or can't get, and they have lost most of their effect, but you can't stop taking them because if you do, you have terrible withdrawal cravings. So don't wait till you crash. Go to smilefixit.com. Sorry. Smilefixit.com is my website, and on my website you'll find the 10 tools that I've been working on for the last 22 years. Not quite finished, but will be finished soon. One of the first tools is videos. There is no faster, easier, more convenient, better less costly way to understand the mental health problem than to watch the right 1 minute video on it. I originally did 8, 10 and 12 minute videos, had 31 of them, and people used to watch long videos like that, but gradually over the years they stopped watching longer videos, and most people only watched 1 minute TikTok-like videos. So now I've got 83 under a minute videos at smilefixit.com. The second tool, of course, was websites, so that people could find those videos. And the third tool is an app, the Mental Fixit app. The Mental Fixit app, because there are many different mental health and addiction problems. The DSM-5, the Bible of psychologists and psychiatrists, says it's about 500. But what I found in treating thousands of patients was that there were 11 that were the commonest, and when I understood how to diagnose and treat those 11 conditions, I could help almost everybody. And I was just a family doctor, a suburban family doctor for most of my life, although for 5 years I had my own addiction and mental health clinic. So why did I get so involved in mental health? Well, it was because in the late 1990s we had a terrible epidemic of heroin addiction. And I saw young people who told me they were the last person standing in their group, that all the others had died of a heroin overdose. And it was such a serious problem that I felt that I must learn about heroin addiction, so I started to work 10 hours a week in a heroin clinic. Sorry, not a heroin clinic, an addiction clinic, but it was 99% heroin. And I wanted to know what the cause was, because in health matters you always want to know the cause. If you know the cause, it's much easier to fix the problem, and if you do fix the problem, it doesn't come back. If you manage to fix the problem but the cause is still there, then they will probably relapse. They nearly always relapse. So you need to find causes. And I went to all the addiction clinics in Perth and Sydney and couldn't find a single addiction worker who could tell me what caused addiction, or who even thought that they should know what was caused addiction. They were so busy treating addiction, they didn't have time to think about causes of addiction. But one day in the clinic where I was working 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and 5 of them had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADD, ADHD. A third of them had ADD, ADHD. And when I looked very carefully, I then found that addictions nearly always started when people were very mentally distressed, and it was quicker and easier to get relief from street chemicals and alcohol than it was to get from medicines and doctors. The commonest problem was worry, anxiety. So general anxiety, social anxiety, separation anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic attacks, and phobias. Worry, anxiety. Another very common one was very poor sleep. And then there was major depression, bipolar disorder, attention deficit disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic evil focus disorder, crashed self-esteem, self-confidence, schizophrenia, and autism. And people who were bad enough to have become addicts nearly always had 2 or 3 of those problems. And I still sadly remember one woman who had five of those problems. Sadly, people, addicts, had very great difficulty getting any help with their mental health, even though mental health was their biggest problem. An addict's biggest problem is not their addiction, it's their mental health problem. But the problem was that addiction makes people poor. When they're poor, they can't afford to pay for mental health care. And the free government clinics refuse to see addicts. If you're an addict, you can't get an appointment at a free government mental health clinic, and the addiction clinics do nothing about mental health. The addiction clinic where I was trained to treat addiction, where I really learned how not to treat addiction, they didn't do anything about even very obvious serious mental health problems, just ignored them. So what they had to do to keep addicts taking their addiction medicines was to give them addictive addiction medicines. So they were nearly all put on methadone, which is about 5 times as addictive as heroin, and then on Subutex, and then on Suboxone, which are as addictive as heroin. So they were still addicts. Very, very few got clear of their one form of addiction, street addiction or medicine addiction. So the most important thing in life is to be mentally healthy. If you're mentally healthy, you're going to get everything else that you want. If you're mentally unhealthy, you are probably going to have to go without some of the most important things in life. The second most important thing I saw was good relationships. Good relationships are the second most important thing in your life. Especially good family relationships, but good friendships as well. The third most important thing in life is to have high endorphins chemistry. Endorphins are over 20 chemicals which are endogenous morphines called endorphins. And these endogenous morphines relieve pain and relieve stress, and if your endorphins are low, you have a very miserable, painful, uncomfortable life. And endorphins are very important because they manage your immune system. We all have an immune system which is cells and antibodies and chemicals in every part of us that fight infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers. So very important to have high endorphins chemistry to relieve your bodily pain and stresses, but also to keep your immune system strong. If someone gets cancer in their 20s or 30s, they've got low endorphins and their immune system is low, and it's not fighting the abnormal cells that keep turning up and becoming cancerous. I recommend that you do a Google search on Dr. Bihari, B-I-H-A-R-I, Dr. Bernard Bihari, who was New York's addiction commissioner. He had 41 methadone clinics in New York. 41 methadone clinics. God, what a disaster. and he was looking for something better. And when in 1963 in Long Island, New York, they found that we have opiate receptors on all our cells, and that heroin works through opiate receptors. So they thought if they could make a medicine that blocked the opiate receptors, that would block heroin. So in 1963 they produced naltrexone, and naltrexone does block your opiate receptors, and that blocks heroin, and it blocks addictive painkillers, and it blocks alcohol. But unfortunately, what they didn't realize is that we have opiate receptors on our cells for our endorphins, our endogenous morphines, to work through. And when we block the opiate receptors to block heroin, we block our endorphins, so we feel terrible. So people would feel terrible on the 50 milligram naltrexone tablets, and they would not continue, they would not stay on them, they would just stop taking them. And when Dr. Baihari found that the people he put on 50 milligram naltrexone all stopped it, he realized it was because 50 milligrams was just too much. Goodness knows why no one else realized that, but anyway, he realized it, and he tried people on everything from 1 to 10 milligrams of naltrexone, and found that 3 milligrams of naltrexone was the best. 3 milligrams of naltrexone blocks all your endorphins for about 3 hours. When your endorphins are blocked for 3 hours, your brain and glands fight back and produce an increase of endorphins of 250 to 300%. And when the 3-hour naltrexone block wears off, all those extra endorphins work and make you feel much better, and help to relieve pain and distress, and cut craving for opiates like heroin and opioid painkillers, and also alcohol. But unfortunately, there was a problem. Even 3 milligrams caused severe side effects in anyone who had had any heroin or opioid painkillers in the previous 2 or 3 days. So people had to stop their heroin or their opioid painkiller for 3 days and then start the 3 milligram low doses of naltrexone. So that was a problem. But Dr. Baihari never solved that problem, because about that time they discovered that they had HIV in New York, and a lot of the people they thought were dying from heroin were actually dying from HIV, and they got terribly worried about HIV and thought it was going to wipe out whole cities, and they forgot about heroin and focused on HIV, the use of low-dose naltrexone, and they also found that the 253 to 300% increase in endorphins produced by low-dose naltrexone cured many cases of cancer. The first case he cured was the widow of a very good friend of his who had a malignant lymphoma. She'd had it 5 years before, treated with chemotherapy successfully, but then it recurred, and the chemo didn't work the second time. But he put her on low-dose naltrexone, and the boosted endorphins enabled her to live for another 9 years, and she died of an unrelated heart attack. And then Dr. Baihari went to a conference in Paris and met a woman doctor there who had malignant melanoma spread into her brain. She had 4 patches of malignant melanoma in her brain, and she was on her way out, and he put her on low-dose naltrexone, and she lived for another 18 years because of the boosted immune system, because of the boosted endorphins. So he then focused on treating HIV and cancer. I didn't know about this because from the end of the earth here in Perth, I didn't get a computer until I think about 2006, and then it stayed under my bed for 3 years, and I was treating heroin unsuccessfully with addictive medicines, methadone, Subutex and Suboxone. But I thought, but I realized that the 50 milligram naltrexone was too strong, and I tried 15 milligrams, then 13, then 11, then 9, then 7, then 4.5 milligrams, and I found 4.5 milligrams was the most successful. And if I could get people off heroin with Subutex for 3 days, and before they got addicted to the Subutex, I could switch them to microdoses of naltrexone. What I tried from 1/8 to 1.5 milligrams of naltrexone, and found that they could tolerate 3/4 of a milligram of naltrexone as soon as they started to crave for heroin. And 3/4 of a milligram relieved their heroin addiction for about an hour, and then they start to crave again, and they could tolerate another 3/4 of a milligram. And if I gave them 3/4 of a milligram of naltrexone every hour for about 10 hours, they could then tolerate a double dose, 1.5 milligrams of naltrexone. And after 3 days, they could take the full 3 milligram low dose naltrexone and not relapse. I called the 3/4 of a milligram every hour RMN, repeated microdose naltrexone. So repeated microdose naltrexone, increasing over 3 days to low dose naltrexone 3 to 6 milligrams, worked very well for heroin. But I became very concerned about treating people's mental health, because if you didn't treat their mental health, they just relapse. So I did what's called dual diagnosis, and dual diagnosis is diagnosing and treating the mental illnesses at the same time as treating the addiction. And that's what every addict needed, and I couldn't find anyone else in Australia doing that. I'm very happy to say now you can go online and find people in many parts of the world doing dual diagnosis. Probably still not enough, but dual diagnosis is the way to go. And it appeared to me that the prime job of a doctor was to fix the mental health, so that people didn't become addicts, or if they become addicts, they could get off the addiction and not relapse. So just to continue the line of thought about the most important things in life, most important thing is mental health. The second most important thing is good relationships, then high endorphins chemistry, then a strong immune system, then a good home, a good education, and a good job. The problem was that mental illness often caused poor education, poor work or unemployment, and poverty and inability to be able to afford to get mental health treatment, and the free government clinics had very long waiting lists on which many people got worse and became addicts, and then their mental health clinic appointments were cancelled. In the end, I managed to find that there were non-addictive medicines for everything, non-addictive medicines for every mental health problem and for every addiction problem. There's no need to use any addictive medicines, but the addictive medicines are what the pharmaceutical industry pushes, because the pharmaceutical industry wants you to take as much medicine as possible for as long as possible. And they achieve that in several ways. The first way is to make as many medicines as addictive as they can get away with. It's hard for them to get away with new addictive medicines now, but in the early days, a lot of medicines were addictive. All the barbiturates, which were the main medicines 50 years ago, were addictive. And then in the 1960s, we started to get the benzodiazepines, Valium, Seropax, Mogadon, all addictive. And then we got Stilnox, Ambien, addictive. So many medicines are addictive. And the three main ADD, ADHD medicines addictive: Ritalin, dexamphetamine, Adderall, all addictive. Cause terrible problems. But I found that the great era of medicine discovery was really the last third of the last century, and from around 1960 to 2000, non-addictive medicines, effective non-addictive medicines were found for everything, almost everything. They're still discovering new medicines, but they're for very restricted problems, for small problems. The big problems were all solved in the 1960s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and a few in the early 2000s. But the patent for a new medicine is for 20 years, and after 20 years everybody could make a medicine, and so the medicines became far cheaper, and the big companies were not very concerned about medicines that they didn't have a patent over. But I gradually discovered medicines that were effective for every mental health and addiction problem and were out of patent, and therefore available and low cost. So the pharmaceutical industry made as many medicines as possible addictive. They also made the medicines too slow. Most medicines are tablets or capsules, and you have to swallow the tablet or capsule, wash it down with a drink, and it takes half an hour to an hour to go right down in your gut and start to get absorbed into your bloodstream and start to help you. Half an hour to an hour to start to work, and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly, and that's just too slow for many mental health distresses and many addictions. So what you have to do is you have to take the tablets 2 or 3 times a day. You can't wait until you need to take them. You have to take them in case you need them, so that the tablets and capsules working slowly greatly increase the amount of medicine they are able to sell. The other tool mental health tool is consultations, different sorts of consultations, family doctor consultations, psychiatry and psychology and therapy consultations and group therapy and so on, CBT, but basically talk therapy. And the talk therapy, which is the second main tool, had two great problems. First, it's too slow. It takes too long. With a new patient with 2 or 3 mental health disorders and an addiction disorder, you need an hour to go into that case thoroughly, and you need to see the patient every week, at least once a week, for half an hour to an hour, and that's just too slow, because the other main weakness of talk therapy is the cost. To be a therapist, you have to have a long training period to become a psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist. To become a psychiatrist, 10 or 12 years. So those people have to be paid well, so that makes therapy or talk therapy costly as well as slow. So what I realized was that we all need to have good mental health tools which we can use ourselves. If there's never going to be enough mental health care professionals to help everybody who needs mental health care, then you have to help yourself. And the advantage of self-help tools is you can start very early. And that's my goal, is to create 11 self-help tools that you can start on the day that your problem starts, or as early as you realize you've got a problem, because the earlier you start, the simpler and easier it is. The longer you wait, the more problems cause problems until you crash, and then it's very, very difficult to fix everything. So the mental health tools, which are nearly all up at smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com, which is my website. The other website is healthvideos.com, healthvideos.com. The tools are there. 83 under a minute videos which cover every aspect of mental health and addiction. The 2 websites, the Mental Fixit app, which you can on your phone go to the App Store or Google Play button, tap the button and download the free Mental Fixit app, and in about 5 minutes tap your choice of answers to its questions and get an instant report, and the instant report tells you which 6 of our 83 under a minute videos will help you most. It also tells you which medicines will probably help you most, so you can do some research on them before you see your doctor and get a prescription for medicine. Most people are better having both medicines and therapy consultations. A few people don't want or don't need medicines, but most people are better to start off with having some medicines. But which medicines? So the Mental Fixit app instant report advises which medicine will probably help you most. It also gives you a complete list of everything that you've tapped as a problem, because one of the problems of talk therapy is it's so slow that you often only get to the biggest 1, 2 or 3 problems, but most people have got 4, 5 or 6 problems, and the problems that get missed may be minor problems, less important problems, but they're still problems, and you don't get fully better till you get everything fixed. In my case, tragically and paradoxically, the biggest family problem was transgenerational trauma. Transgenerational trauma from a great-grandmother who had 9 children by 3 different fathers, starting at the age of 16. And some of those children had such a hard time that the problems got passed from generation to generation to generation. And I never found out about transgenerational trauma until I was 80. All those books, all those years of study, all those years of helping people, never found transgenerational trauma until I was 80. Well, now with the Mental Fix It app and the 83 videos, you can go through them very quickly and find everything and not miss anything, which is very important. And what I've been working on flat out for the last 3 months, it will help that process even more, because what I call it is Scroll Plus. What I discovered was that people love short videos, 1 minute, under a minute TikTok videos. Even 1 minute's too long. And they love live streaming, which is why I now do live streaming 4 days a week at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. They love short videos, live streaming and scrolling. TikTok is only 9 years old and they have over 1 billion visitors every month, over 1 billion visitors to TikTok every month. And what do most of them do? They scroll. So now I realize the only way that people are going to get, that everyone's going to be able to get mental health care and get it very early, as if it's on phones, and it involves under a minute videos and scrolling and live streaming. So that's what I'm working on, and I apologize for the fact that Scroll Plus is still not there. The Scroll Plus ebook is there at Amazon in an imperfect form, but we've been refining Scroll Plus, and there are 89 items, 89 mental health and addiction wants, needs and solutions, and I've got the titles of those 89 items in a scrollable form, and have developed 6 to 16 second videos on each item, so you can scroll through everything. Every time you find something that's important, you can tap on the video and immediately get a 6 to 16 second explanation of that problem. And if that helps you, then there's a link to a 1 minute on that problem. And if that helps you, then you can do the Mental Fix It app and see 6 videos in 6 minutes, so you can quickly get all what you need. But unfortunately, we still haven't got the Mental Fix It Scroll Plus online. Hopefully in the next couple of 2 or 3 days, and then we'll also have Mental Fix It Scroll Plus audio book as well. Now, people want to talk to me, and I want to know, want to get as much feedback as I can, but there's usually at least 1,000 viewers, so I can't talk to all those people. But if you send me your comments, questions and criticisms through through the platform that you watch this live streaming on, or email me. I always respond to emails. The email is healthestuff@gmail.com, healthestuff@gmail.com, and that email address you can find at smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com. Yeah, so today is Friday. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Perth time, and Sunday morning 9 a.m. Perth time. Thank you for watching, and good luck.